At the center of this new virus cluster in Beijing is the largest wholesale market in Asia called the Xinfadi. Thousands of people visit this market every single day, and so far all 137 cases can be traced back to people who visited this market. Initial reports indicate that the virus was found on imported salmon packages at the market, and this led to the product being taken off shelves across Beijing. But China's CDC has now confirmed that there is no evidence to support this theory.
目前我们还没有证据来表明三文鱼是新冠病毒的宿主或者中间宿主。但不管怎么样，如果你觉得有新冠病毒暴露的风险，或者是接触了可疑的病人，或者食用了可疑的食品，应当及时进行健康监测和核酸检测。
To understand the threat posed by this new cluster, we must understand just how big the Xinfadi market really is. It is often said that if Xinfadi shuts down, the food supply of the whole of Beijing and adjoining areas will be disrupted. The market is spread across more than 1 million square meters and absorbs 80% of Beijing's farm food supply. 18,000 tons of vegetables and 20,000 tons of fruit are traded here. Such massive amount of produce attracts an equally large customer base. More than 200,000 people visited the market in the first 10 days of June. All of them and their immediate contacts are now being traced. Xinfadi also employs 8,000 workers, all of whom are currently under quarantine. In relative terms, this market is 22 times the size of the seafood market where the virus emerged in Wuhan. For more details on this fresh cluster of cases in Beijing, Patrick Falk is now joining us live from Beijing. Patrick, thanks so much for joining us. Now, my first question is, it seems that the cluster of cases is growing across Beijing and the Xinfadi market is at the center of it. Domestic flights have also been cancelled. So tell us a little bit about the Chinese administration's response and how is the situation on ground really?
Well, officials in China have repeated that the situation is extremely severe. Now, there have been more cases reported in the last 24 hours than the day before, 31, as you mentioned. So the number has grown to 137 confirmed cases in total. It was a little bit more than we had yesterday, of course, when there were 27 reported cases. That may or may not be a concern for authorities. They have said previously that if the numbers remain stable, then it shows that things are relatively under control. So, you know, that slight uptick, 5 or 6 more cases over the last 24 hours. I don't know how much concern that will be, and no doubt they'll be monitoring that over the coming days to see if there is any dramatic rise. That would be a bigger concern if that number does change significantly, because it would potentially show that the outbreak has been wider than has been reported so far, perhaps. But as you say, these measures are being put in place right now, like those 30 communities that have been designated as medium or high risk zones, if you like, and all these flights that are being stopped from coming in and out of Beijing. These are all big steps that are being taken, but you know, it's hard to tell at this moment whether or not authorities are just trying to get a step ahead of this outbreak, or are they just simply responding to the numbers as they see it.
Right. Now, businesses had already been struggling to recover as lockdown restrictions were easing, and now this re-emergence of coronavirus cases in China's capital, Beijing, adds further uncertainty for businesses and consumers. So how are the citizens reacting?
Well, it's a really interesting point that you mentioned, because certainly in this part of Beijing where I am, and we're fairly central, you can't actually notice that much change at the moment. Most businesses haven't been told to shut or change their operations or anywhere, and you can understand that officials in China will be very reluctant to unravel all the sort of easing of restrictions that we've seen in the recent weeks, and particularly at a time when it is trying to get its economy back on track. So we haven't seen an awful lot of change to business or industry for the time being, but certainly simple things, you know, simple restrictions like getting from district to district and having to go through QR checkpoints and wearing face masks. Also, residential compounds are being told to tighten up on regulations as well. These were things that everybody had been easing up on recently, really.
All right, Patrick, thank you so much for joining us and for all your inputs on this story.